Good evening and welcome to another edition of Minority Caucus. Today we're going to have a discussion around utility tariffs, the insensitivity of the Mahama administration, and the killer utility tariffs that we have experienced over the last couple of months. First, it was Dumsor. They claimed they had resolved Dumsor, and then tariffs started going up to the extent that industry is on its knees, threatening to shut down. Households cannot pay their utility bills. People are being forced to turn off electricity in their homes because they cannot pay for the cost. Today, rent has become cheaper than electricity and water bills. We will be right back, and then I'll introduce my guests for today's discussion. Viewers, you're welcome back on Minority Caucus, and with me this evening to have this very important discussion is Honorable Kweku Kwating. He's a member of Parliament for Obuasi West. Also with me is my good friend and colleague Anthony Abayefa-Kabo, a Deputy Director of Communications of our party, and also our parliamentary candidate for the Laura constituency in the Upper West region. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Minority Caucus.
Thank you very much.
I'll start with you, Kweku. I would like us to start from the cause of the problem and zero into where we are today. 4 years ago, or even before the 2012 elections, this issue of Dumsor began. The president made a lot of promises on how he was going to resolve it. Then we went into the 2012 elections, and then after the 2012 elections, it got worse and worse year on year. There were several promises from the president that Dumsor is going to end on this date. The days came to pass. Dumsor did not end. And then the purchase of power ships and trying to resolve the issue. Dr. Baumia talked about the fact that it was a money issue and a management issue. And then the government claimed that they had resolved the issue. Now, we are at a point where electricity bills have become a problem to the extent that the PURC a couple of days ago issued a statement asking the Electricity Company of Ghana to suspend the billing process. From your point of view, have we managed this process well enough as a government? And is how much we're paying today what we should be paying as a people?
Well, good evening to viewers. It's been quite some time since I've been here, and yeah, I'm happy to be here today. Perry, to start with, we haven't managed the situation properly. But to be fair to the NDC government, we need to recognize that traditionally there has been an underlying weakness in our power delivery systems and arrangements, and it is this: that because we're reliant very heavily on hydro, and there were occasions when, if you like, the rains did not deliver, there have been points in our history where we have been forced to have power ration because anticipated supply from hydro has not happened. And we can recount 1983, even in 2007, 2008, we had it. So I think it's fair to government to recognize that this problem has been there. What is new, and what I think Ghanaians are feeling very worried about now, is the fact that inadequate and erratic power supply has become not a consequence of failure of rains or that a certain expectation for our delivery did not happen, it has virtually become a way of life. It has become a regular feature of our power delivery system. And I think that is where the worry is. Could we have done better? Of course we could have done better. You have to look at the demand of the Ghanaian demand for power, both by industry and also by domestic, to know that at each point in time, you ought to have a certain minimum generation of power with a certain margin to be able to deliver adequate power. We have not, in the last 8 years, not acted, I mean, as a government and as a country, if you like, we have not acted in a way that assures consumers that government understands this. And I say that because if you don't have a buffer and your consumption keeps increasing, then it is clear to you that at some point you're going to fail. Now, the situation we're in now is because the thermal power that we seem to have embraced as a way of supplementing the traditional hydro power have many, we have many of them around. Now they use fuel. Therefore, a government must plan to get the fuel that these generators will need. Because as we speak, capacity, generational capacity is adequate for our purposes now. The difficulty we have had is that our inability to procure raw material, which is the fuel, to power that has fundamentally been...
Which is the light crude.
Exactly. And it is, and sometimes gas. And it is the reason now, Dumso is not something that comes about when the rains fail, as we did have in the past. Dumso has now become an everyday experience. And as I speak, I live at New Achimota. We are undergoing power rationing. And very soon, I think we ought to be asking government when this round of Dumso will end. Yeah. Now, the reason we're here is that government just does not seem to have sufficient money or seem not to have prioritized power sufficiently, power delivery sufficiently, in order to be able to finance it. So when there's no money to buy fuel, be it gas or be it crude, then the result is that we cannot generate as much as we should, and then we need to get into this situation. So that is how much, in my opinion, the mismanagement of our finances, making it difficult for government to put money into power supply. And when I say mismanagement, I recognize that we see expenditures, and recently we're seeing the pointless expenditures in bus branding. You look at the Auditor General's report, you have so much wastage that government seems to be saying that, yes, we must satisfy some of the expenditures we want to do. We must give money to all the money that have been given to GIDA, SADA, and all the corruption-related matters. What we are saying, in effect, as a country, is that we would rather put money in those things, and then we don't have enough to procure the raw material that would help us generate sufficient power. So, in terms of the outages and the inadequacies, this is what I attribute it to. It's purely financial. If we have money to procure gas and sufficient crude oil, we will not be having this difficulty.
So what you're saying, in effect, is that it is a matter of priority. It's a matter of priority in the sense that this is a government that is able to prioritize paying monies to, in terms of judgment debts, bus branding, and the rest of it, without actually focusing on the economy and the fuel that runs the economy, which is power.
Precisely.
And not putting their money or putting our money where our mouth is, in making sure that there is consistent supply of electricity, not only to power our homes, but to power our industry, in order to generate a certain level of growth for the country to be able to...
Precisely.
Yeah.
And if I can land on this quickly so Cabo can come in. You see, when the Jubilee fields gas was going to come, there was a certain jubilation that once we have gas from the Jubilee fields, our problems will be over. When that gas came, it was, in any case, 80 million standard cubic feet per day. And what did government say? Government said it was using it to replace the use of crude to power some of our generators because that is more expensive. And it is the reason in...
So the gas is cheaper.
The gas is cheaper. So government says if I have gas, I would use it to power those generators that were generating power using crude so that I can save some money. Now, as you indicate, most Ghanaians will be understanding if that savings government would be making will be put into the productive sectors of the economy, will be put into areas that will create jobs, will be put into areas that will make it easy for businesses to thrive and to play their role in the development of a nation. If Ghanaians thought that this was what government would do, they would be more understanding. But when you begin to hear the waste and the mismanagement, then, of course, you're going to ask government to do something about the situation. But if I can finally, in terms of the generation, if I can land on this, I do not believe that government does not understand this. I mean, that...
Then what's the problem?
I think it is the unwillingness to make the sacrifices. You know that people are awarding contracts. You know that there's no value for money. You know that in order to make those savings so you can provide the services people, Ghanaians, require of you, you need to cut the waste and stop some of the wastage. But at the same time, you are going into, the government thinks it's going into an election. It will need people to support them. They think that there are people very close to government who are benefiting from these inefficiencies. And therefore, it is hard, even though I have no doubt that there are people in this government who understand this simple logic. It is the inability to make the sacrifices and to say, look, if we want to deliver power, then we must forego some of the illegitimate benefits we're getting. We must stop the wastage, even if it means that people who are financing our campaign or people who are putting money illegitimately in our pockets will stop doing so. We will do it for Ghanaians until we have that kind of commitment and a desire to do the right thing, even if it denies people in government of benefits, many of which are illegitimate. I think they should do so. It is our inability to get that commitment from government that has resulted in the situation we have right now.
Viewers, you can join us before we go to Cabo. Viewers, you can join us via social media, via facebook.com/joynews on TV and on WhatsApp on 0560800000. Cabo.
Yeah, thank you very much.
has tried to tackle the issue from the fundamental issues that concern our power sector. What's your take?
Well, I think that I would first of all like to say a good evening to my constituents who are currently watching and also to Ghanaians. But more importantly, I would not like to belabor the synopsis that my friend, colleague, Mr. Honorable Kwaku Kwate has given. But to add this, I don't know, you would recall that in 2015, October 2015, Mr. Walter Perez, I don't know if it is NGAS or WAPCO, or NGAS, held a press conference in Ghana, indicating that our government was indebted to Nigerian gas to the tune of some $180 million. And after this announcement, the president came out and said that if Ghanaians wanted reliable and sustainable electricity, then people should be prepared to pay more. And then, this was in October, and you recall that suddenly by December, tariffs had gone up by between some 70 to 80% for electricity and water, respectively. Now, from the beginning of this year, consumers, that is residential and commercial consumers of electricity, started raising concerns about the hikes in their electricity bills and water bills, especially when the calculation didn't show that it was some 70 to 80% increment. It had gone way past that, and the complaints started coming. All of a sudden, what we heard from the government was that some meters had, there were faulty meters, and then subsequently the Deputy Minister of Power comes out to say that the problem has to be some software that ECG was using. We heard Mutaka, in fact, placing the blame on ECG and in some collusion, with the opposition party to undermine the government. Then all of a sudden, PURC comes out with the directives saying that, the ECG must suspend the usage of this meter. The question that people have been asking is, when did the PURC and the government realize that there was a problem with the software? Because electricity bills were supplied in January, electricity bills were supplied in February, electricity bills were supplied in April, all through till now. So the question is,
May is
almost ending. And what appears to be so clear to all of us is that every Ghanaian is struggling from this hike and unrealistic bills that are sent to our doorsteps, or those who use prepaid machines and go to buy because it has become so difficult. The downside of all these hikes is that we need to look at it in relation with industry, we need to look at it in relation with business and how people are coping. It is quite clear to me that even the AGI comes out about a week ago, in fact, talking about how, the hikes in electricity and water is virtually crippling their business. And this has a lot of effect on job creation, expansion of business, because people's cost of running their businesses suddenly have shot up. The question also for residential users is, is the economic situation or the economic environment in the country capable of supporting this over 100% increments in electricity? Workers haven't seen any adjustment in their salaries. The inflation in the country is one of the highest in the last few decades, 19.6 or more percent. We're talking about a huge debt situation, and the government is virtually, reeling with these economic difficulties. So clearly there is massive hardships. I pity those lifeline users in the rural areas who suddenly have also been...
Is there anything like lifeline anymore?
Well, because the usage of this new electricity, new software and prepaid meters that suddenly have gotten into many parts of the rural Ghana. You go to places like Nandom, you go to places like Hamele, you go to places like Jirapa, you go to places like Bunkurgu, Yunyo, and all these places which are supposed to be lifeline. Of course, those in the Netco catchment area are all lifeline users. Clearly, this new meter has made, or software or billing software has made life very unbearable for those in the rural areas. In my community, I don't know if you get these complaints. In my community, that is the biggest complaint. It is the biggest issue in Laura today, that people are struggling. People go to buy 20 Ghana cedis worth, which could take them throughout a week or two, and suddenly it is done in days. And we are getting all these rampant lights off, and for some reason, anytime the lights goes off and you happen to be using a prepaid meter, you can be sure that the balance that you have on, once the lights are back, everything is taken over and you have to go and buy. The economy is not really kicking. Business is slowing down. There are difficulties in the economy, and this is the reason why, this government's attitude and behavior in as far as managing the general, problem in the energy sector is very, very reckless and insensitive, because we all do know that places like Ivory Coast, are currently generating, electricity at very lower rates compared to Ghana. And it's not as if they are buying the crude from a different market. It is the same international market that we all go to buy the crude. The price of crude on the world market has tumbled so much that, you know, we expect that by now we should be getting our governments, in fact, addressing the issue of tariff adjustment. Because if we are going by the you know, automatic adjustment formula, one of the reasons why this government has justified electricity increment was two reasons. One, cost of the dollar, which they claim is a major problem. Cost of crude on the international market.
But isn't that an economic management
But that's
issue?
why it dovetails into economic management. And I'm saying that if you look at when the you know, the Atuabo gas came online, the president went to commission it. One of the big narrative by the NDC was that Atuabo gas was a major game changer because the country was spending so much money importing crude to power these thermal machines. And so with the coming in on stream of the West Africa, the Atuabo gas, we're going to buy this at a very cheaper rate, and all our machines will be connected to Atuabo gas, and gas is cheaper, and that can help bring down the cost of electricity. But these are the opposite. Atuabo gas has finished, has it not? Why are we not getting the benefits of Atuabo gas? These are the questions Ghanaians are asking. But if you also care to know, the country has sunk in so much into this project. I don't want to come to that because Mr. Koku Kwatin was in parliament when all these things were brought, and they raised very serious issues with this deal. But we are seeing it happening, but very little is being done. We are not getting the benefits of the gas that we are promised in this country, which will help drive down the cost of electricity, and of course, also help businesses to make major savings, expand their businesses, employ many more people, and then disposable incomes in our country can go up. But we are not seeing all these backward and forward linkages as far as policy is concerned. And that is why we are in this situation. But if you compare, it appears to me that in the West African sub-region, Ghana appears to be paying some of the highest, you know, tariffs. And this is a major put-off for businesses, because any business that is coming into this country that is capital intensive, that will depend on electricity, will have to do the analysis across the West African and look at what the average is and where will be cheaper and where corporation or multinational or investor for that matter can reap these investments. And these are the analysis. That is why all of a sudden Ivory Coast has become, you know, the favorite for many investors. And we are seeing that in the massive economic transformation that is currently going on in Ivory Coast. We are claiming that our country is supposed to be on a path of transformation and progress, and people's lives are being changing, but I can tell you that this current government is destroying the lives of ordinary Ghanaians. Look at many health centers across this country that have to store the snake serum. And with this high cost of electricity, can they sustain that? It's a major problem. And so healthcare is coming on under his knees. Educational institutions in this country cannot keep up with the bills that they have to pay. Our medical facilities in the rural areas that are giving primary healthcare to our people are struggling. You go to a place like Ermo Clinic, and they are bringing to you an electricity bill that the clinic cannot even support. And these are major, you know, health.
I can see you have some electricity
Well,
bills.
I have the bills of, look, if you take the bills of Fun Milk, for instance, I mean, I intercepted this, you know, quite very cleverly. The Fun Milk of, the electricity bill of Fun Milk is scary, what they pay. Today, Fun Milk is paying some amount of 190, almost 200,000 Ghana cedis for electricity just by the end of last month. And previously, they paid half of this bill.
The 200,000 Ghana cedis, that is 2 billion.
2
billion old
all
cedis.
Ghana
Old
cedis.
Ghana cedis, yes.
This is scary for a company. So you can imagine how much of the cost they will transfer onto, you know, at the end of the day, when they finally produce their product.
Sure.
We'll have to pay or buy these Fun Eyes and yogurt and all these things at very expensive prices, because it is simply because they're having to pay so much to keep up with their machines and keep production going on. And there are many more. There are many more. You know, bills of these companies. I just want to take my time and actually go through some of the bills so that people can see that we are not, you know, making up any of these things. This is the bill, authenticated bill of Farm Milk Ghana Limited. And this is a
Ghana Water Company.
And this is
bill.
Ghana Water Company
not
bill.
Electricity.
This is not even
the other
electricity.
Ones
the other ones will show.
I'm told, for instance, hotels like Mervyn Peak, Golden Tulip, Holiday Inn are paying in excess of 1 million Ghana cedis a month in electricity bills.
This is ridiculous.
Water comes to between 4 to 500,000 Ghana cedis in a month. And you know, Kweku, the way a hotel operates, if a hotel has an occupancy of 300 rooms, it cannot fill those 300 rooms every night. So there are times when a hotel that has an occupancy of 300 rooms may have just 20 people in the hotel. And yet, you would have to power the whole hotel. And if these are investments that are made by businesses or business people in order to be able to make some profit, employ Ghanaians so that we can all make ends meet. And they are saddled with these kinds of, expensive utility bills. How will they survive?
How will they survive? I mean, that's it's a rhetorical question. Perry, when I had the opportunity to speak earlier on, I guess was looking at the erratic supply and the fact that we did not get enough. And I made a point that the problem is fundamentally financial. And I think many people, Dr. Baumia, many others included, have made that point. That is fundamentally the problem. Government's unwillingness to make savings from the wastage and mismanagement of national resources. I'm careful not to use the word corruption because I don't want this discussion to be dominated by issues of corruption. I'm sure you have another opportunity to discuss that. Government's unwillingness to do that in order that the savings would be directed into things that are so essential is what is responsible for the power crisis. Now, let's move on to the pricing issues that Cabo has already spoken to. We're living in denial. I mean, when I say we, I speak as a Ghanaian. We have a leadership government. Government is living in denial. Government is pretending that the problem is not so much my inability to do the necessary investments in the energy sector and to procure the raw material needed to deliver reliable supply of energy. But somehow it is because there's no money. That is the denial that is resulting in the crisis we're having. So the tendency for government has been to find ways of getting more and more money from consumers. Now, when a basket leaks, or when you have a basket, no matter how much water you would put into it, unless you fix the leakage, you just would have no water left. That is what we are saddled with. Yeah. So, yes, traditionally we have all made a point that it is necessary that we pay the right prices for utility and the delivery of these services so that the right investments could be made. That point is fundamentally accurate. And as a policy person, I agree with that position. But it is another matter when government, in the name of that, of the fact that we should pay right prices for power and utility supplies so that the right investments can be, when in the name of that, government just wastes money that gets into this sector and continues to charge consumers more and more and more and more. It just is not right. Now, there are a couple of things, and I'll be brief on this. There are a couple of things that have resulted in this. As a result of government denial, the first thing we have seen is that just up prices. And I have no doubt in my mind that the PRC is there. And I have no doubt in my mind that government influences the way the PRC does its work too much, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, so we keep upping the prices, and assuring Ghanaians that we need to do this if you are going to get regular supply of power. And we've been doing this since, and we continue to be here. The first thing is the inefficiencies of the system. Apart from the fact that government itself is not putting sufficient money in the sector, the little money that goes into the sector is also subject to so much waste. There are many people who are consuming power without paying for it. Now, it's the job of government and ECG to ensure that distribution is paid for. Yeah. If you don't, and you have these inefficiencies supplying power and you not being able to deliver, you cannot turn around and slap high costs on those consumers who are paying their bills. Yeah. That is the first point government has to recognize, that the inefficiencies have to be dealt with. The second is procurement. Now that we all recognize hydropower is insufficient, what we are saying is that we need to move more and more into thermal. That is why you have the Asogli plants, you have this plant. So when we say thermal, we are talking about the thermal plants. Now we are moving into the use of thermal plants to generate power for consumption because, as I said, hydropower is insufficient. Now, how are we procuring these projects? In times when we are in so much difficulty, government says, I am going to the international market to acquire barges and generators that would support what we're doing. Apart from the fact that I think many of those projects were unnecessary because we needed to do rather investments into the existing capacity to deliver as more. But when you consider the fact that our Procurement Act makes provision for international competitive bidding and tendering, so government should have gone to the the international market for procuring these badges and said, I want to procure these badges. I want people to make proposals. I'll choose the best. We didn't see that. We have seen sole sourcing. All the major power projects were procured through sole sourcing with public funds. I mean, they are public projects. They should have done in accordance with the Procurement Act. Somehow, the sole sourcing that has bedeviled domestic procurement, where we are procuring, Smarties, for instance, had to do all the wrong things, and together with the ministry, before they went to the Procurement Act to lie, that we now want to do this, Procurement Act, give us authorization. As I said, we will deal with these matters subsequently. But
coming to power, since we are talking about...
I can land on that. So the point I'm making is that when we procure these projects at such high cost, because the procurement process itself has been made a sole source arrangement. Therefore, it's between the vendor and government officials. And they sit down and all kinds of things happen and we are slapped with such an expensive project. And Mary, all the other projects.
Power and the rest of it.
Then they come and say, oh, now generation is expensive. Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and many others, especially in our part of West Africa, they go to the same markets as us. How come that they are now giving power to their consumers and their citizenry at a much lower rate than we're doing in Ghana? We ought to be asking that question. And the reason, as I have said, is in the inefficiencies in the operations of our power sector, but also the inefficiencies and the corruption in the procurement of the project to deliver power. Until government decides that we will now forgo these illegitimate benefits, illegitimate money into our pockets. We will forgo corruption. We would stop these ones and put the money in those areas that will bring relief. I'm afraid we are never going to have this, and the problems may even worsen.
Because, for instance, we are told that in Ivory Coast, commercial users of electricity pay about 13 US cents. Sure. And in Ghana, commercial users pay 32 cents.
Yes, it's a sad commentary on, to begin with, I think, when we have made the savings, when the inefficiencies have been reduced, the wastage, the corruption, and doing all the wrong things, when all those things have been stopped, I think the savings should go, first, of course, into reducing tariff levels for consumers, for domestic consumers, but also we should begin to consider whether we ought not to relieve industry of some of the burdens they face in power delivery. Because Cabo did make the point that he cries for rural consumers. But I can tell you, when power becomes so expensive and businesses collapse, the urban poor, they suffer in worse ways than you could imagine. And therefore, this power matter is a serious matter, and I am inviting government. Well, look, this government has been in power for 8 years. We have seen the many deals. We have seen a lot of the wastage. We have seen all that. if people are not satisfied and would want to continue this wastage because it puts illegitimate money into people's pockets, I try to avoid the word thievery out of respect for consumers.
It is thievery.
Then this thing is not going to stop. And we must wake up. I am happy now. People are really waking up and telling government that we can't pay these tariffs. Until we wake up, these tariffs would go up in the name of pay the right prices, and in the end, we will continue to suffer.
I'll come back to you, Kweku. Viewers, you're on Minority Caucus, and bear in mind that if a power badge that is supposed to cost us on the international market $220 million happens to cost us $560 million and counting, the effect is that they are going to pass on this cost to us ordinary Ghanaians to pay exorbitant utility tariffs. We'll take a break now. We'll come back to the discussion. You're welcome back to Minority Caucus, and we're discussing the insensitivity of the Mahama administration and also the killer utility tariffs that have engulfed our nation. With me having this discussion are Honorable Kweku Kwating and Anthony Abayefa Kabo. Kabo, back to the discussion. There's an intriguing part of this utility tariff brouhaha, which is there are prepaid customers. I'm a prepaid customer.
I see.
I give you the ECG money ahead of time for consumption that I'm going to use for a period of a month. You buy credit and then it caps you. The meter caps you to 16 days, it caps you to 18 days, it caps you to 14 days, irrespective of how much money you spend or irrespective of how much credit you buy. I would think that when you buy credit of, let's say, 500 cedis, the meter takes it, and according to your, because your consumption can never be the same month after month. So when you load 500 cedis, depending on how many lights you turn on in your house and how many appliances you turn on, then it deducts until the money finishes. But in this case, we have meters where when you plug in 500 cedis, it caps you 16 days. So irrespective of whether you use the credit for 16 days or not, on the 16th day, because my meter, for instance, there are days when 4 days to the 16 days to end, you would see maybe 50% of the amount purchased still on the meter, and then in 4 days it runs out. I think it's something that is really, really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Kabo.
You know, I mean, I don't know, but like somebody described, you know, I think this is a very fraudulent meter, and the ECG knew very well that this, and the government for that matter, knew very well that this meter was fraudulent, because I recall when Energy Minister, Deputy Energy Minister Inusa Fuseni at the time was an energy minister, there was a massive demonstration against the implementation of this new meters in Tamale. There was another demonstration in Bolga against this implementation, because those who were in the NETCO catchment area felt that these meters was going to be very detrimental to our fight, you know, to ensure that rural communities and urban centers, in fact, get properly built. But it's very interesting that all of a sudden, when an opposition leader is indicated and provided sound analysis of why our electricity bills are so high, why is Ghana, charging so much on their citizens and businesses, we have people in the government and the government communication all of a sudden indicating that the promise, and I don't even call that a promise, Nanado made a commitment that indeed the NPP government, which is a government in waiting, in fact, it's a government in waiting, in 2017 will reduce these tariffs to the barest minimum so that Ghanaians can afford it.
Because?
And it is simply because, and make the point, like you indicated, in Ivory Coast, in fact, commercial production of electricity is costing the Ivorian government 32 US cents per kilowatt. In Ghana, same commercial is costing our government, it's costing, in fact, in Ivory Coast, it's costing them 13.4 kilowatts to produce it. In Ghana, it's costing our government 32 US cents per kilowatt. And it answers your question about the inflated Mitka Ameri deal that has ballooned from some $250 million to over $560 million. Is the reason why the unit per kilowatt commercial in Ghana is that high.
And these are monies that consortiums have, you know,
absolutely
pushed
the
into
whole
their pockets.
Ameri deal, Metka deal is shrouded in a lot of secrecy. There is massive corruption in that, and I can assure you that any government, and that will be the MPP government back in power, will have to relook that deal again to ensure that value for money is done, because we've seen other countries address head-on their energy crisis. In fact, Ivory Coast was one of the countries that was virtually plunged into darkness. It took the Ghanaian government to even supplement energy needs of Ivory Coast. We used to sell power to Ivory Coast. And today, Ivory Coast is standing on its feet because of prudent management, because of a frugal government, because of a government that has a long-term vision. They have been able to resolve the power crisis in Ivory Coast. And today, they are getting the benefits. That is why they are having to produce energy at a low cost, residential, at some 9 cents per kilowatt. And in Ghana, it is being charged for some 13 cents. And this is completely ridiculous. And that is why Nana Akufo-Addo is making the point that, look, every government comes into office with its own priorities. We have our set of priorities. We know that the cost of crude in the world market has tumbled. Ghanaians are expecting the benefit. We know that Atuabu gas is supposed to be on stream and therefore must provide gas to power the rest of our thermal generation that we have in the thermal energy enclave. We know that. Because of the government mismanagement of the economy and the mismanagement of the entire power sector, Ghanaians are having to pay from their noses these ridiculous, in fact, very annoying bills that we're having to pay, especially when the living conditions have become worse. Ghanaians are worse off under this government than they were 8 years ago, because people could have an increased disposable income. The economy was well managed. Ghana's debt situation was in the reasonable levels, and so people could make ends meet. Today, it is not the case. So when Nana Akufo-Addo makes this firm commitment that he will deal with this issue, because it is one major issue that can spur development. We are not looking at reducing this because we want to score cheap political points, but it's because of a long-term vision to make Ghana an attractive destination for businesses, to make it possible for businesses and companies to reduce their production costs, employ many more people, and of course, expand the economy. And that is the only way government can benefit from the downward stream of businesses and the benefits that comes with it in terms of corporate taxes and disposable incomes indirectly, which government will be collecting. That is why we are saying that economic management is not like selling tomatoes on the street side. Economic management has to do with prudent planning. In fact, it has to do with long-term vision, and it has to do with having activities lined up that we are going to follow in a very disciplined way. And so when we make this firm commitment, we mean it. And Akufo-Addo is not making it for opportunistic purposes. He's not making it for political purposes. He's making this commitment because he feels that this is a problem. The nation must tackle the problem. Leadership must respond to the problem. And he, as the president in waiting, inshallah, is responding and saying that, look, under my government, this will be looked at, because we currently are seeing that all the macroeconomic indicators are looking in the wrong way. And we know that prices of crude on the world market has fallen so much, and that we must see that accompaniment as far as reduction in prices are concerned. And this doesn't just go for electricity alone. This even goes for fuel. Okay? Yeah. Because we are seeing a lot of, world prices have been quite stable. And of course, we expect that any government will give us that. That is one of the reasons why we had to bring this automatic price adjustment, because that helps governments to make savings when they have to make savings, and also to make the cost of utility and electricity, water, and all these things affordable for the Ghanaian people. And so Akufo-Addo makes that promise, which is a very genuine, honest, and a commitment that he has made, and people should hold that leader to this particular promise. And that is the kind of democracy we want our country to enjoy.
Well, our time is running up. So let's come to you.
Quickly, let me make this point. I have no doubt that the meter and the metering of consumptions that the ECG brought has its own problems. I have no doubt at all. But let's not be under any illusion that the issues we are worried about now are coming from the meters. They are the issues we have discussed, the inefficiencies and the determination by government to make as much money as possible from citizenry, and it is why others are paying less. I don't think the meters in Côte d'Ivoire are giving them any problems. So let's not, and I've seen that attempt by government spokespeople to suggest that they have joined Ghanaians in blaming the ECG. In Parliament, wherever you are seeing government spokespeople join Ghanaians in blaming ECG. Well,
it is not an ECG.
There has, of course, as I said, there might be problems with the meters which the ECG has to look at. But now that there is a directive that they should stop the new billing arrangements and revert back to what they used to do before these new meters came, we will see whether the levels will come down as we want. And so it's important we clear that. But to make this final point, I have no doubt in my mind that we have people in Ghana who are as good as those managing the power delivery system of Côte d'Ivoire and many other countries in the sub-region. I do not think that we are incapable of running an efficient system that would deliver more reliable power at more affordable rate to consumers in Ghana. Côte d'Ivoire is not better than Ghana. Many of these other countries, you go to Benin, Togo, they are all selling power cheaper to their citizenry than our government is doing to us. Yeah. Is it that Ghanaians, we lack the expertise to do this? So when Nanado says that we will fix the inefficiencies so that those savings would go to reduce tariff for the price of Ghanaians pay for power, I believe it. I have no doubt in my mind that if we would check the waste and the inefficiencies in the delivery arrangements, the production, the delivery, and fix all the institutional issues, and
we have to go
and stop that, I'm very confident this would happen, and I really hope to see that day when this would happen for Ghanaians.
Before we go, I'll take this message, and it says, good evening. We have made up our minds long time. NDC will never come to power again. NDC is a failure. Nana and MPP should come to save us. And this is from Osman in Zebila. Viewers, you have been on Minority Caucus, and my guests have been Anthony Abayefa-Kabo and Honorable Kweku Kwating. We've been discussing the killer utility tariffs. Good night.